The psychiatric ward at Veterans Memorial Hospital had seen difficult patients before, but Staff Sergeant David Reeves was different. He sat in the corner of his room, back against the wall, eyes scanning every entrance like he was still on patrol in Kandahar. For 3 weeks he had refused treatment, refused medication, refused to speak to anyone except in clipped, hostile warnings to stay back. The doctors tried everything. They brought in counselors, therapists, even a chaplain. David would simply stare through them with those hollow eyes that had seen too much, his jaw set in stubborn silence. His family pleaded from the hallway, his mother's tears doing nothing to crack the armor he had built around himself. The hospital staff grew frustrated. Dr. Peterson wanted to pursue involuntary treatment, arguing that David was a danger to himself. The psychologist, Dr. Maria Santos, insisted they needed more time, that forcing treatment on a soldier suffering from severe PTSD would only deepen his trauma. But time was running out. David had stopped eating regularly, had lost 20 pounds, and spent his nights reliving firefights that only he could see. The night nurses reported that his screams could be heard throughout the entire floor, roars and desperate sounds that haunted everyone who heard them. On a quiet Thursday morning, a new nurse arrived for her shift. Her name was Claire Mendoza, and she carried herself with an understated confidence that came from years of working with wounded warriors. She had been a Navy nurse for 15 years before transitioning to civilian care, and she had specifically requested assignment to the psychiatric ward. When she read David's file, something clicked. His unit, his deployment dates, his hometown. She made a phone call, asked some careful questions, and learned something that wasn't in any medical record. Claire entered David's room without the usual hesitation everyone else showed. She did not try to approach him or speak in the soft, therapeutic tones he had learned to hate. Instead, she simply stood near the door and said in a clear, steady voice, "I, Eagle 6, this is Nightingale Actual. How copy?" The effect was instantaneous and startling. David's head snapped up, his eyes suddenly focused and sharp, his mouth opened slightly in disbelief. Those words, that call sign, belonged to a world he thought he had left behind in the sand and blood of Afghanistan. Iron Eagle had been his unit's classified designation, known only to those who had served with them during their most dangerous operations. Nightingale Actual had been the call sign for their medical evacuation coordinator, the voice on the radio that meant salvation was coming. Claire took a careful step closer. She told him that she had served with his unit's sister battalion, that she had coordinated 17 medical evacuations during the same deployment window, that she knew the sound of incoming mortar and the smell of burning fuel and the weight of carrying your brothers to the helicopter. She spoke in the language of shared experience, not of clinical diagnosis. She told him about her own struggles coming home, about the grocery store panic attacks and the sleepless nights and the feeling that she had left the most important part of herself in a war zone 7,000 miles away. David's rigid posture began to soften, almost imperceptibly at first. His hands, which had been clenched into permanent fists, slowly opened. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough from disuse and emotion. He told her about the IED that killed his best friend, about how he had held Martinez while he died, about the guilt that aided him every single day because he had survived and Martinez had not. He told her about the nightmares where he relived that moment on an endless loop, where he tried different things, moved faster, pushed harder, but Martinez always died in his arms. He told her he did not deserve help, did not deserve peace, did not deserve to feel okay when his brother was in the ground. Claire listened without interrupting, without offering empty platitudes or clinical assessments. When he finished, she sat down on the floor across from him, maintaining the distance he needed, but closing the emotional gap that had isolated him. She told him something that would change everything.
She told him that Martinez's mother had written to the hospital 6 months ago, asking if anyone could reach David, asking if someone could tell him that she did not blame him, that she knew her son had died with someone who loved him, and that she prayed every day for David to find peace, because that is what her son would have wanted. The tears came then, breaking through 3 years of carefully constructed walls. David wept like a child, great shuddering sobs that seemed to tear something loose inside him. Claire moved closer and simply sat with him, present in his pain, without trying to fix it or minimize it or explain it away. She told him that healing was not betraying his friend's memory, that surviving meant honoring the sacrifice by living a life worth the price that had been paid. She told him that treatment was not weakness, but courage, that asking for help was the bravest thing a warrior could do. The transformation was not instant or magical. David's journey through trauma would take years, would involve setbacks and struggles and moments of doubt. But from that day forward, he accepted help. He took his medication, attended therapy, started eating again. He learned to carry his grief without letting it destroy him, to remember Martinez with love instead of drowning in guilt. Claire became his advocate, his bridge between the military world he understood and the civilian healthcare system that seemed so foreign and threatening. Months later, when David was finally discharged, he stood in the hospital lobby with his family, his mother crying tears of gratitude instead of despair. Before he left, he found Claire and offered her something he had not been able to give anyone in 3 years. He saluted her, sharp and proper, and thanked Nightingale for bringing him home one more time.